So let me ask you guys. I mean, first I'll ask you, Dan. How long have you started working with Y and how you discovered it and what got you to do, be in this Y Institute?
Yeah, so I started working with Y in October of 2019 after having left a corporate career and looking to do something more fulfilling. Gary Sanchez, the founder and CEO of the Y Institute, happened to be my dentist, and he was just starting to commercialize the Y. And the first thing he asked me when I told him I was transitioning, he said, "Dan, do you know your why?" And that started my journey. He helped me discover my why, but more importantly, helped me discover my how and what, understand how I bring my why to life and what it is that I bring. And that started a process that was so enlightening for me. I said, "Gary, how can I help? What do you need?" And he said, "Dan, you've got tremendous experience in sales. You've been selling at a high level for a long time. We need somebody with your skills to help us spread the word about why." So I've been with Gary since December of 2019.
Awesome. Well, Marion, so how did you get, discover the Y Institute? What got you there? And I guess, how did you get introduced? I guess my main question.
Yeah, I I met Dan actually through a mutual connection on LinkedIn, and I've noticed the things that Dan was posting and the Y Institute, and it really, it got my curiosity. And so we were doing a Y interview, and we discovered my own why, which was rather eye-opening because I knew how I was operating, but I never could articulate it in a way that I can now and truly understand what's driving me, what it is that I do that truly makes that impact and creates those results for clients. So it's been what, Dan, 10 months? And counting, yes. And we've done a number of different things, and I'm a big fan. And actually, we took the Y global because we had one group that was from various countries within Europe, and I just felt that we needed to spread that message and that knowledge.
So I'll ask you a follow-up question. So what has that Y discovery led? I mean, what's your discovery, and what has that done for you?
So my why is a better ways, finding better ways. And that couldn't be more spot on because throughout my entire career, I've been developing strategic plans, strategic growth roadmaps, and branding and leveraging various global industry leading brands. So while I had done that, I didn't realize at the time that it was driven by my why of finding better ways, because it could be a company that is in crisis. It could be simply a change in the market, in the competition, or just in general, the world that we live in. There's always something that we can improve. And that's not to say that we're always looking for the things that don't work, but I am a believer of growth from a personal perspective as well as professional perspective. So in my business life, I've always looked for the little things that could be aligned. And so the biggest result really from me understanding that has had an impact on not only how I message, how I define who I am working with, but also from a component of what it is that I do in my work, which is a holistic approach. And within the businesses, finding a better way to say it's not primarily about the result and the financials and the shareholders and so forth, like the results that we always think of when we think of business and profitability, but it is driven by an alignment internally and what I call the human factor. So having all of these pieces together to me is a much better way, because now we're creating that change, we're creating that growth, but at the same time, it drives the results to where we want to be versus having that the primary goal.
Awesome. Well, I go back to you, Dan. So you discovered your own why. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that's why you got into, helping Dan. So kind of tell me what your why is and how that has helped you grow this business right now.
What I have found, so my why is to contribute to the success of others. I'm a contributor. I love to help other people succeed. I love to be a part of causes that are bigger than myself, and I love to make an impact. So when I get an opportunity to reunite with someone like Marion, who's taken the work that we did, and she was so kind to introduce me to some of her international connections. We had a big workshop and it was global, like she said. And we know that her why is to find a better way by challenging the status quo, looking at things differently, and ultimately creating clear plans. So she has 3 whys in her why, how, and what. Mine is to contribute by challenging the status quo and making sense. So one of the ways that we connected is we both have a how of challenge. And you probably, if you heard us talk long enough, you would see that we both like to say, well, why do we have to do it that way? Why don't we do it something differently? You know, the fact that we're here together is me doing something completely different, because one of the things I always do is, hey, I want to work with our coaches who are certified coaches, but Marion has been such a valuable partner, even though she never became a certified Y coach. We connected so well. She connected me to her network, and she has been using the messaging in her work that I see value in this relationship, even though we're not working formally as a Y coach. I feel she's one of our biggest advocates of the Y Institute. For me, what it's done, Raju, is I love to contribute and help others. Now, my how is to challenge the status quo. So I do it completely differently. I often see my work as helping people see something they haven't seen before, right? Let's look at things from a different perspective. And then at the end of it, I want to help them make sense of it, right? When you challenge the status quo and you bring something different to the table, sometimes people need help understanding it. And so my how, my what of makes sense really kicks in at the end to help people understand, okay, here's how I'm going to help you contribute. Here's what we're going to do that's different. And let me help you make sense of it. And when you put all 3 together, what we end up with is someone who either decides, hey, you know what, this is something I want to add to my business, or this is something I want to learn to do for others. And we end up working together more often than not. And that's why Marion and I resonated.
And actually, Dan, you bring up a really good point that I'd like to elaborate on, because the reason why I haven't been part of the certification is because I am not a coach. But that's not to say that the work at the Y Institute isn't as relevant as for any other profession. I'm a strategic advisor and consultant. So I just want to point out there that even when we are not, those of us that are not coaches, this work is still extremely valuable, because it does I clearly define and identify how we can even get better in our own business, in the way we're serving our clients and are working overall. So from that perspective, I believe that the Y really has a few different, and I call it like paths that we can take that down and truly benefit.
Well, let's get into that question then, right? The benefit. So give us an example. Where did it benefit you? How did it affect whatever you're building, right? So give us an example, how it helped you.
So a couple examples. The one that I mentioned a bit earlier, that I have found that within companies that are growth-minded, we are often looking at specific areas, whether that is sales, and particularly in real estate. I've been in the real estate and construction industries for a long time. So there's a lot of my experience has been in that. And so the focus that I found is often on the sales side, the transactions and the leads, which of course is very valid. But looking at it from a more holistic approach, and I'm giving you an example there, when you are building your processes and your systems, and you're growing your employees and your staff, your support staff, to truly support your sales teams, you're having a more holistic approach, a more rounded approach, and you're giving them the support so they can actually go out and do the job that they need to do, and that they're bringing in the business and the transactions. When you forget about that component, or when that becomes a second thought, then what is happening is you often have redundancies, you have inefficiencies, you have unmotivated employees and staff that are not jumping higher and faster like you need them to, especially right now with what's going on in the real estate world with multiple offers and low inventory. There's so much pressure and so much stress on not only the agents, of course, but also the staff and the teams and the leadership teams overall. So we have to align that. We have to create an environment where we have efficiencies, where we don't have redundancies, and where we have a culture that is not solely on the office culture, but on the corporate culture and organization overall. And the better way with that, outside of the holistic approach that I've been on my messaging, you'll notice that has changed slightly, is that of brand loyalty. Because when we hear of branding, and obviously that is my background, I've held various executive roles within the branding and the marketing throughout my career for global companies. So looking at branding, we so often see the design aspect, the marketing aspect, and we forget that branding is a lot more. There's branding internally and externally. It's the behavior, it's the customer service, it's what can you expect from a certain brand. And that same thing translates internally, the loyalty of your employees and your team members, and how well you're attracting and retaining. So that to me has been one of the big improvements, knowing my better way of truly taking the branding to a whole new level.
Got you. Now, do you, your why helps you do that, but do you also try to discover their why to help in that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, when you're working with a client that is not looking for a better way, then that, it's a two-way street, right? So you have to understand the needs that the client has, what the personalities are within, what is the structure, what is already in place, so you can truly create something that will get that particular client from point A to point B. But that's why I said earlier, the clients that I tend to work with are those that have a growth-minded approach.
Yeah, gotcha. Awesome. Well, Dan, how about you? Obviously you're marketing, you probably have a lot of examples. Can you give an example where it has benefited your clients or yourself personally?
Well, I think, the biggest benefit that our clients see is in their messaging, because when you let people know what it is that drives you. So for example, in Marion's case, she's driven to find a better way. You can hear it every time you hear her talk. She's found a better way, and she's driven to share that with others. So that's what she does. And how she goes about it is by challenging the status quo and looking at things differently. And ultimately, what she delivers for her clients are clear, actionable plans. So when Marion starts doing messaging that way, what we know is if you tell people what you believe, which is you believe in finding a better way by challenging the status quo and helping people create clear plans, you're going to attract people that believe what you believe. And so when you open with that, then you're working with people who are your ideal clients that are looking for your unique gift. And her unique gift is to help find a better way by challenging and creating clarity. My unique gift is to help others by challenging and helping them make sense. So I think when you look at the messaging and you help people really be clear about who they are and what their sacred gift is that they bring to the world, then you can really put that message out there and then work with people who are looking for that. It's almost like that ikigai principle, right? That we all know. What are you good at? What does the world need? What can you get paid for? And what do you love to do? And it really, when you put your why, how, and what together, that's your zone of genius. So now let's find people that are looking for that. And then are they willing to pay for it? And do you love doing it? And if you do all four of those, then you're in the right place. And the why, how, what allows you to be able to communicate that.
Awesome.
Yeah, the messaging is a very, very important part. And I absolutely agree with Dan, because when we understand that the within the communication, especially social media right now, where there are so many messages out there, right? We might have something very valuable, and it might be, the pain point might be really big for the client, so they do need that help. But when we don't clearly communicate what we bring, then how is that client supposed to even find us? So that messaging goes so many ways, because it truly is a matchmaker between those that need what the coaches that all with Dan work with, and in my case, advisors and consultants. And I'll certainly carry that word forward, because I feel that is just as an important component as is the coaches, the business of coaches, because we also work with clients. They need that advisory work, and we need to make sure that we are having the tools to actually reach them and then support them.
All right, awesome. Last question, quick one. So anybody on the fence, who is looking at why but isn't sure, can you tell them why they should be doing the why discovery, Marion?
Well, true to my own passion of finding a better way, why would you not want to know what drives you? Because it will determine the time you spend, the resources you spend, the impact that you can have, and ultimately the results that you're creating. When you're clear on your why, you can drive that home and truly leave to the left and leave to the right what doesn't matter. So that's a simple one, Raju.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan and Marion. Well, as you guys heard, you should try why and discover why you do things or why you don't do things. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.